Now, I say when this carnage began, obviously, there was a context before the 7th of October, but this is importantly when they begin this round of horror which they look at. Now, the researchers say they don't necessarily capture all the articles because of the limitations of the BBC search mechanism, but they believe it is a very large and representative sample, over 90% plus of articles present in that time frame that they look at. This was, in their words, an attempt to surface the systematic disparity in how Palestinian and Israeli deaths are treated in the media. They run individual sentences through a natural language processing system. Now, that's a branch of artificial intelligence which gives computers the power to understand text and spoken language like a human being, in this case called Stanford Cree NLP. I'm sure those who are AI buffs know far more about it than myself. Now, they then use these results to identify sentences with mention of death, and they manually tagged each one as referring to Palestinians, to Israelis, or neither or both. So this was done manually by the two researchers rather than the computer. They had specific rules. The victim had to be either Palestinian or Israeli, or the death otherwise happened in the West Bank and Gaza or within the pre-1967 borders of Israel. They exclude speculative deaths, that is, someone may die, injuries, or deaths must have happened on October the 7th or since. What they find is truly shocking. I mean, it might not be surprising, but it is shocking. Bear in mind, when we go through these results, far more Palestinians have been killed compared to Israelis. Now, at the end of the time frame used by the researchers, around 18 times as many Palestinians had suffered violent deaths compared to Israelis. It's now, and of course, sorry to report, much more. So over this time frame, the number of Israeli deaths actually fell because Israel revised down its death toll from the 7th of October. The final death toll is believed to be around 1,139, including 695 Israeli civilians, 36 of whom were children, and 71 foreigners. Now, by the end of December, according to the independent NGO Euromed Human Rights Monitor, over 21,000, so the beginning of December, over 21,000 Palestinians had been killed, including over 8,300 children, and an estimated 19,660 civilians. Now, I'm using a higher death toll than that used by these researchers. They're referring to the official death toll. I mean, it's still obviously much higher, well over 12,000 by the end of their time frame. Now, even that number is denigrated by apologists for this appalling massacre of Palestinians on the basis they come from the Hamas-run health ministry. But in previous conflicts, the final toll of Palestinians, death toll, has been subsequently confirmed by Israel and the United Nations. At the end of October, all the names, personal details and Israel-approved IDs of all deaths at that point were released to prove that the numbers being released are credible. Independent aid agencies have also said the figures are entirely credible, but actually they're underestimates. That's why I'm using a higher toll, because they exclude those buried under the rubble who are clearly dead. I'm sorry to have to keep saying that, but it's true. It's also reasonable to say that actually Euromed Human Rights Monitor are almost certainly significantly underestimating the actual death toll, because violent deaths are one thing, but we don't actually know the full number dying because of untreated underlying health conditions, disease, lack of food, clean water, and so on. That's the so-called excess death toll, which will not be clear for a long time, if ever. Not actually the proper total.